What if the might of a sprawling army crumbles before the resolve of a nation? As Russia wields a dominant military presence, it's easy to declare victory in the press. Yet, under the surface, a much different reality unfolds. Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, may seem in control, but in the shadows of strategy and morale, Ukraine's spirit shines blindingly bright. What happens when strength falters and determination rises? In the critical battleground of Donetsk, Russia has made painfully slow advances, capturing only insignificant pieces of territory. Over the summer of 2025, these gains amounted to mere hundreds of square miles. Yet, the resistance of Ukraine is fierce. They're fortifying their positions, holding onto every inch of land with unwavering valor. Far from the narrative of an invincible force, the picture painted for many onlookers shows Kiev on the rise while Moscow finds itself mired in its own failures. Take a closer look at Pokrovsk, an essential logistical hub that has turned into a symbol of Russia's struggle. This city connects Ukraine to vital supply routes, making it a prized target for Russian commanders ever since they first laid eyes on it almost a year ago. Despite the Kremlin pouring every available resource into seizing the city, drones, tanks, and even covert operations, success remains just out of reach. History reveals that drastic attempts to encircle Pokrovsk have met with disappointment. Russian forces have launched countless assaults, only to be met by the dogged determination of Ukrainian defenders. The 93rd Mechanized Brigade and the Azov Corps stand resolute, pushing back Russia's advances and stabilizing lines that once seemed perilously close to breaking. Much to the chagrin of Russian officials, reports of imminent capture have echoed in the media time and again, yet the city remains firmly under Ukrainian control, at least for now. As the battle drags on, what does it say about Russia's military prowess that capturing a single city is akin to a Herculean task? All of its might, its formidable budget, and its vast supplies can't secure this key position. But while Moscow appears exhausted in its quest, Kiev flourishes. Remarkably, Ukrainian forces have managed to reclaim far more territory than they have lost in the ongoing skirmishes around Pokrovsk. Evidence of this resilience comes from the Ukrainian Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief, Oleksandr Syrsky, who shed light on the month of August. In stark contrast to Russia's aspirations for vast territorial gains and operational advancements, Syrsky revealed that the enemy's ambitions led to surprisingly minimal results. He detailed that despite capturing small amounts of land, Russian forces had actually lost more ground than they gained, highlighting Ukraine's ability to resist and even reclaim territory. The ominous weight of the past year hangs heavily on the Russian forces. Initially, they swept into Ukraine, armed to the teeth and stark in their ambition. Yet, the tide has turned. As Ukraine received invaluable assistance from allies like the United States and European nations, their strength surged. The conflict's lethality has since escalated dramatically, claiming staggering casualties on the Russian side, with estimates of over 1 million losses. In the wake of these overwhelming defeats, Russian commanders find themselves bewildered and forced to adapt their strategies dramatically. No longer can they rely on traditional methods of warfare with heavy armor. Smaller squads face the enemy with little more than rifles, risking everything for a cause that now feels muddled and increasingly hopeless. Morale plummets amidst chaotic orders and relentless losses, leading tens of thousands of soldiers to contemplate desertion. An organization called Get Lost, founded by Grigory Sverdlin, aids these weary soldiers in evading conscription. He voices the grim circumstances faced by the ranks, highlighting that Russian commanders value machinery over human lives. In a world where lives are expendable, the desperation is palpable. Is there hope for change, or are lives, indeed, cheap? As the war drags on, the cold reality settles in. Russia must confront the failures of its own strategies and the stark limits of its resources. The nation, once thought to be a powerhouse, is suffocating under the weight of its ambitions. With limited manpower left to sustain the conflict, can Russia truly afford to press on? The questions linger in the air, suffocating yet necessary, as the future of war hangs ever precariously in the balance. In the ongoing struggle for control, the Russian military's relentless assault on the strategic city of Pokrovsk illustrates a fascinating yet grim aspect of modern warfare. The city has become a symbol of perseverance amidst chaos, where Russian forces have attempted to seize it repeatedly. Despite their numerous efforts, including deploying assault groups and even infiltrating the city with disguised soldiers, their endeavors have repeatedly faltered. After a vicious attempt to encircle Pokrovsk through the surrounding towns, Russian troops broke through Ukrainian defenses near Dobropilya. However, the promise of success quickly dissipated. Ukraine counterattacked brilliantly, mobilizing its elite units such as the 93rd Mechanized Brigade and the famed Azov Corps. By late August, they reversed the tide, pushing Russian forces back and stabilizing the front lines once again. The headlines may buzz with the notion of imminent Russian victory, but the reality is starkly different. For now, Pokrovsk remains firmly in Ukrainian hands. The audacity with which Russia pursues its ambitions only highlights its difficulties. With vast military resources, from advanced tanks to an overwhelming arsenal of armaments, one would expect an easier conquest. Yet, the truth is, capturing a single city seems to elude them time and again. While Russian forces claim minor territorial gains, Ukrainian resilience has allowed it to reclaim significantly more ground. This was emphatically highlighted by Oleksandr Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. His revelations indicate that despite intensifying aggression through the summer offensive, Russia's territorial acquisitions were minimal. Indeed, the month that began with high hopes for significant breakthroughs resulted in the occupiers' lowest gains in recent memory, Syrsky stated. The numbers confirm this. In sectors like Dobropilya, the Russians only gained 5 square miles but surrendered nearly 10. In the critical area of Pokrovsk, their advances were even less impressive, revealing a tactical deficit in an already dire situation. The atmosphere surrounding the battlefield grows thick with desperation. Ukrainian forces have surged back, reclaiming twice the territory they've lost while facing waves of Russian attacks. This shift in morale and momentum signals a striking transformation in the war's dynamics. As each day passes, the realization dawns, the strength once attributed to Russia is fading, even as the conflict rages on. Amidst the clamor of warfare, it is becoming abundantly clear that the tide may be turning. As Russia expends more resources, the echoes of soldiers' footsteps in muddy trenches may soon symbolize more than just a quest for a city. It embodies a struggle not merely for land but for the very essence of hope. Will Pokrovsk stand resilient? Or will history show how the weight of desperation can fracture even the strongest ambitions? As another assault is anticipated, the oncoming storm exhibits signs that what lies ahead could redefine the course of this conflict, leaving both sides grappling with their fate. In a surprising twist of fate, while Russia ramped up its aggression with an unprecedented summer push for territory, the results fell woefully short of expectations. The month that was supposed to signify breakthroughs became one marked by only minimal territorial gains for the invaders. Reports show that in the Dobropilya's direction, Russian forces managed to secure just 5.2 square miles, but suffered losses of an astonishing 9.8 square miles. In the critical Pokrovsk area, Russian advances amounted to a mere 1.9 square miles while Ukrainian forces swiftly reclaimed a staggering 10.3 square miles. This tells a shocking story: for every inch Russia takes, Ukraine is reclaiming 5. As Russian officials concentrated their efforts, they launched around 350 assaults in a desperate bid to control Pokrovsk during just the first week of September. But despite the relentless waves of attacks, Ukraine has transformed into a formidable force, not just defending but fighting back fiercely. A year prior, Kyiv's troops were largely on the back foot, overwhelmed and outnumbered. Now, the tides have turned dramatically, suggesting a profound shift in momentum. At the onset of the conflict, Russia marched into Ukraine with overwhelming numbers, massive battalions, armored tanks, and a fleet of vehicles crossing the border. Yet, as months passed, that initial onslaught began to falter, stagnating in various sectors along the front line. International support from allies like the United States and European nations bolstered Ukraine's defenses, providing much-needed resources and morale. With renewed strength, Ukraine adopted aggressive tactics that had previously been out of reach. The cost of Russia's ambitions has been staggering. Recent estimates point to over 1 million casualties, with nearly 300,000 personnel reported killed or injured this year alone. Equipment losses have also reached staggering levels, with more than 4,100 tanks and 8,300 armored vehicles lost, alongside significant quantities of essential military systems. As winter approaches, will Russia be able to muster the resources to change the tide, or are they facing a reckoning as their supply lines dwindle and morale deteriorates among troops? The haunting sounds of war persist, and soldiers increasingly resign to a bleak fate on the battlefield. Many now contemplate desertion as their best route to survival. The question hangs heavy in the air: can Russia continue its campaign when the very spirit of its forces appears to be unraveling? In the turbulent landscape of the ongoing conflict, many have wondered who is truly winning. While Russia touts its numerical might and territorial acquisitions, a closer look reveals a different picture. The tide seems to be turning, indicating that Ukraine, not Russia, is gaining the upper hand. But how could this be? The answer lies in the battlefield's strategical intricacies and the resilience of Ukrainian forces. As the numbers play out, we learn devastating truths: over 1 million Russian casualties, with around 300,000 reported specifically this year. Staggering losses unfold on the equipment front as well, with more than 4,100 tanks and 8,300 armored vehicles rendered useless. The scale of devastation grows daily, crippling Russia's military might. With such losses, Russian commanders are forced to re-evaluate their approach, scrambling to adapt to an unwinnable game. Gone are the glory days of heavy tank advances. Russian tactics have shifted dramatically, with commanders abandoning large armored formations in favor of small, unsupported squads. Many soldiers find themselves on missions devoid of proper equipment, relying on basic rifles and makeshift transport like civilian trucks or even scooters. The looming danger from Ukrainian artillery creates a constant atmosphere of despair and inevitability. For these soldiers, the mission often feels like a death sentence. This dire situation has led to a morale crisis. Tens of thousands have deserted, risking severe repercussions such as imprisonment or worse at the hands of their own commanders. In a poignant moment, Grigory Sverdlin, a desertion advocate, captures their plight. Their lives mean nothing to commanders. Tanks lost are prioritized over the loss of soldiers. Every soldier is a puzzle piece in the war's grand design. In an age where artificial intelligence and technology influence military strategy, human lives remain irreplaceable. The willingness to fight rooted in love for one's homeland creates a bond that dictatorship cannot break. However, Russia appears disconnected from this fundamental truth, treating its soldiers as expendable. Currently, the Kremlin has the capacity to recruit tens of thousands monthly, though this will not last. The grim reality is that, despite its large population, the supply of willing soldiers is not infinite. Resources, too, are depleting. Capable military personnel cannot endlessly replace the fallen or injured. The once thriving economy falters, and with it, the foundations of Russia's military strength tremble. Production capabilities strain under the pressure of ongoing conflict, with the inability to replace lost equipment stalling their advancement. Each day reveals the harsh truth: the war is drawing resources and lives, and Russia is gradually losing its once iron grip. Both the people and machinery fade away under the relentless weight of a mismanaged campaign, leaving a bleak future ahead. In this fraught narrative, chaos reigns and the flickering embers of hope persist. Who will stand tall as the dust settles? The outcome remains unpredictable, full of potential surprises and twists. The unanswered questions linger, driving the desperate across the battlefield, urging them to challenge the reality thrust upon them. Will the tides finally shift, or will despair consume those on both sides as they grapple with the consequences of choices made in the name of war? As tension escalates, one must ask, what becomes of an army when it views its soldiers as mere numbers? The conflict in Ukraine has revealed a shocking truth: the lifeblood of any military, its people, are treated as expendable by their own leaders. In Russia, as the war drags on, the ramifications of disregard for human life are becoming all too apparent. Amid the chaos, many Russian soldiers face a grim reality. With the stakes so high, countless men have chosen to abandon the Kremlin's army. Grigory Sverdlin, head of an organization called Get Lost, which aids men in dodging conscription, voices their plight. To commanders, the loss of soldiers means little. A tank lost is a tragedy, but losing people? A mere inconvenience, he says. This bleak acceptance weighs heavily. Soldiers hear it again and again: their lives hold no value. Imagine standing at a post, the acrid smell of smoke in the air, the rumble of distant explosions echoing as countless lives are put on the line. Fear grips these men. Many ponder their mortality as the order for a new wave of assaults looms, knowing full well the uncertainty that awaits them. Yet hope shimmers through despair. Russia continues to recruit tens of thousands each month, lured by promises of financial support for families. But this influx is misleading. With a population of 143 million, even a nation of such size cannot infinitely replace its losses. The accumulation of casualties grows, while resources to sustain the war dwindle. Russia's military power, once formidable, is showing signs of strain. The yearly production of T-90M tanks, a few hundred at best, cannot compensate for the staggering losses. Similarly, while drones and ammunition are manufactured in large quantities, the time and resources required to maintain operational strength are rapidly being consumed. The economy, previously robust and steady, is teetering on the edge of collapse. Rampant corruption and wasteful expenditure have eroded the Russian national wealth fund. Financial institutions now grapple with an alarming rise in loan defaults, spiraling prices of essentials, and a looming recession. Western sanctions are clawing at Russia's economic stability, exposing vulnerabilities that many thought were buried beneath layers of propaganda. As chaos looms, one must contemplate, what will become of a leader clinging to power amidst crumbling support and a faltering economy? Desperation breeds reckless decisions. Fearful of internal dissent, Putin has initiated a purge of military leadership, but how long can this cycle of fear and desperation sustain his reign? The scenario continues to unfold, revealing a strained nation at a tipping point, a critical juncture with paths that each hold their own form of uncertainty. The echoes of battle play a relentless symphony of disarray. The question now remains, how much longer will the Kremlin's shadow hang over its soldiers and families before the truth becomes undeniable? The winds of change may be closer than we think. Reckless spending, rampant corruption, and an extensive waste of resources have caused the Russian national wealth fund to plummet. Major banks are faltering under the weight of loan defaults, prices for essential goods are skyrocketing, and a recession is dangerously close, while the repercussions of Western sanctions eat away at the Kremlin's financial foundation. As military failures mount and the nation's economy collapses, President Putin finds himself increasingly desperate and erratic, a change evident in his recent actions. In an attempt to exert control, he has embarked on a chaotic purge of top military officials and ministers, aligning himself with the Federal Security Service, the one organization he trusts. This so-called anti-corruption campaign sees him removing adversaries from power, shifting blame for Russia's setbacks onto others, and even potentially causing some to resign, be imprisoned, or die under mysterious circumstances. To compound his troubles, Putin has been forced to slash military spending from 2026, fully aware that this decision undermines any hope of turning the tide in the war. Despite launching a summer offensive in an effort to seize momentum before a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, his forces have faltered without any meaningful gains. Stagnation has settled over the Kremlin as Putin treads water, desperately clinging to a strategy that has increasingly shown signs of failure. In stark contrast, Ukraine has experienced a remarkable resurgence. Over the past year, particularly in recent months, Kiev has risen like a phoenix from the ashes, enjoying significant successes. From a daring incursion into Russia's Kursk region last year to the highly effective Operation Spiderweb that struck multiple Russian airfields, Ukraine has transformed its military strategy. No longer confined to mere defense, it has unleashed a series of counterattacks on Russian positions, with outstanding results. This dynamic shift comes down to one word: strategy. While Russia often seems to hurl everything it has at Ukraine with no cohesive plan, Ukraine has carefully calculated its responses, capitalizing on vulnerabilities and revitalizing its battle tactics. Now, as the conflict continues, one question looms: can Putin navigate through the storm he's created, or will Kiev's strategic foresight lead to a defining victory? Imagine the tension as the air crackles with anticipation, the distant rumble of artillery echoing across the land, and the smell of smoke wafting through the corridors of power. The weight of uncertainty suffocates the Kremlin, while in Kiev, a palpable sense of determination ignites every soldier, every civilian ready to defend their homeland. What will be the outcome of this high-stakes chess game, played on the battlefield with lives hanging in the balance? Can the tide shift again, or will desperation lead to untold consequences for both sides? As the minutes tick by, the world watches, breathless for the next move in this terrifying game of power and survival. In the ongoing conflict, the narrative often suggests a simple truth: Russia, with its vast resources and looming military presence, seems poised for victory. But, scratch the surface and the story transforms into one of resilience and strategy. What if I told you that while Russia appears strong, they are actually trapped in a quagmire, and Ukraine is on the rise? The situation is far more complex than it seems. Imagine a battlefield where the lines are drawn not just in land, but in strategy and morale. The Kremlin bet heavily on sheer force, believing its size could bulldoze Ukraine into submission. They have gambled on the assumption that numbers and firepower alone are sufficient for conquest. Strangely, despite incurring catastrophic losses, they cling to this blunt approach with little adaptability. In vibrant contrast, Ukraine has been evolving. The Ukrainian forces have effectively transformed from a defense-focused army into a formidable counteroffensive unit. Their success stems from precise goals and innovative methods. When Russia unleashed drones upon Ukraine, Ukraine didn't just build walls, they crafted a formidable shield while developing their own cutting-edge drone warfare techniques. They have executed astute operations, like the renowned Operation Spiderweb, striking back decisively against vital Russian targets. Unlike Russia, which indiscriminately strikes civilian areas, bombing schools and hospitals, Ukraine fights with a sense of honor. They meticulously choose their targets, focusing on what truly drives the Kremlin's war machine. Strategic points such as radar installations, air defenses, and supply lines face relentless assaults, crippling Russia's military infrastructure. Each successful strike leaves the Kremlin staring at hefty reconstruction bills, sometimes amounting to millions. This ongoing struggle isn't just about territory, it's a battle of wits. As Scott Harper eloquently stated in a gripping piece for a major publication, Ukraine's tactical brilliance is in how they hone in on enemy vulnerabilities, exposing Russia's underlying weaknesses. As the storyline unfolds, one can only ponder, is the true strength of a nation measured by its military might, or by the hearts and minds of its people? Join this tale where hope and strategy intertwine, and prepare for surprising revelations as we navigate through the fog of war, facing the stark realities that shape the present and the potential futures of both nations. In recent months, the tides of battle in Eastern Europe have taken a surprising turn. As Ukraine continues to defend its territory against a larger opponent, it's clear that the conflict is far more complex than it appears on the surface. Early assumptions may lead one to believe that Russia, with its overwhelming military presence, was poised for victory. Yet, as circumstances evolve, many are beginning to question this narrative. Picture the war room in the Kremlin, filled with generals who once brimmed with confidence. Now, a shadow of doubt lingers. As Scott Harper, a prominent American businessman, noted in a recent commentary, Ukraine is innovating and manufacturing armor faster than its opponent. Ukrainian forces are no longer solely reliant on Western assistance. They have stepped up production of vital munitions, creating over half of their necessary armaments. This shift has significant implications. While Russia resorts to targeting civilian infrastructure, Ukraine's missiles and drones strike with precision, targeting military formations and command bases. This meant that the Ukrainian strategy was not only effective but morally grounded. The ramifications? Inflation is crippling Russia's economy, leading to shortages of gasoline and ammunition. Supply chains are collapsing, and generals are finding themselves more vulnerable than ever. Imagine the sounds of chaos echoing through the air, with refinery fires erupting across Russia. Each explosion reflects a growing crisis within the military hierarchy, which once prided itself on dominance. In response, Ukraine reveals powerful weapons. Like the long Neptune missile with its astonishing range of 1,000 kilometers, and the high-speed Sapsan, reaching speeds of 3,000 miles per hour. Ukraine's advancements signal a critical moment, where the capability to deliver powerful strikes is becoming a game-changer on the battlefield. The recent introduction of the Flamingo missile, able to reach targets 1,200 miles away, will only exacerbate Russia's growing headaches. The future remains clouded. Will Ukraine's innovations secure a strategic advantage, or will Russia find a way to regain its footing? The realm of conflict is unpredictable, and the stakes have never been higher. As the battle rages on, will the Kremlin adapt quickly enough to counter these new threats? And as both sides grapple with dwindling resources and low morale, who will ultimately emerge victorious? The answer lies in the hands of those willing to fight for their beliefs. The air is thick with anticipation, and history is being written on the front lines. In the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, perceptions of victory can be misleading. Many view Russia as having the upper hand, with its superior numbers and gradual territorial gains, particularly in regions like Donetsk. However, a closer examination reveals a different story, one where Ukraine is not just holding the line but is actively reclaiming territory and redefining the course of the conflict. While Kyiv faces significant challenges, including manpower shortages and relentless bombardments, it's making remarkable strides in innovation and self-sufficiency. Ukraine has introduced its Flamingo missile, a groundbreaking development capable of striking targets up to 1,800 miles away. This leap in capabilities allows Ukraine to significantly lessen its reliance on Western support while ramping up its production facilities. Harper pointedly observes, Ukraine is innovating in manufacturing faster. It has surpassed the mark of making more than 50% of its armaments. As a result, Ukraine is not just surviving, it's evolving into a formidable force. Moreover, the military landscape is undergoing rapid transformation, whereby Ukrainian innovations, such as AI-driven sentinel turrets and enhanced armor for tanks, are becoming key players in the ongoing war. These advancements make Ukraine increasingly resilient against Russian drone strikes and ground attacks. Harper succinctly captures this shift. Ukraine is winning because it is actively degrading Russian capabilities to wage war while its own capabilities are growing. This remarkable progress does not equate to an unchallenged triumph. Ukraine is grappling with dire issues, particularly in sourcing enough soldiers for critical areas along the front lines. The nation is enduring relentless night assaults, where hundreds of Russian drones and missiles rain down destruction upon towns and cities, obliterating homes and critical infrastructure in mere moments. Yet, amidst such tragedy and loss, Ukrainian resilience shines through a narrative marked by courage and fortitude. As the tide shifts, with Ukraine strengthening its position while Russia grapples with a growing weakness, the looming question is, what challenges will Ukraine face next, and can it maintain this momentum against a relentless adversary? In this complex theater of war, where each day is a battle for survival, the very fabric of national identity hangs in the balance. The world watches closely, as Ukraine fights not only for land but for its history, heritage, and future. The question remains, can they hold on to their hard-won gains in the face of overwhelming odds and relentless attacks? Only time will tell if this courageous nation can continue to redefine its fate amidst the chaos. In the face of relentless aggression, Ukraine has risen to an inspiring strength that defies expectations. Every day, its citizens showcase unmatched resilience and bravery, transforming dire circumstances into opportunities for remarkable innovation in warfare. As their homeland bears the scars of conflict, with destroyed homes and cultural landmarks, the spirit of determination shines brighter than ever. Leadership in Kyiv has stepped up against almost insurmountable odds, directing efforts with tactical intelligence that have left the aggressor reeling. Ukraine has harnessed its ingenuity to create unexpected countermeasures, making their military operations both effective and strategic. Despite the overwhelming losses suffered by Russia deepening wounds in human resources and military equipment, Ukraine remains steadfast, continuing its fight with a resolve that seems to only grow stronger. Where Russia has faltered, racked by internal turmoil and strategic failures, Ukraine remains in a position of ascent, fighting back efficiently against an adversary whose claimed victories often crumble under scrutiny. The notion of a swift victory for President Putin appears increasingly out of reach, like a mirage fading in the desert sun. As the conflict continues to unfold, the landscape of war is shifting. Ukrainian troops have not just held the line but have pushed back, reclaiming territory and inflicting considerable losses on their opponent. Numerous reports highlight the achievements of the Ukrainian military. From effectively coordinating defenses to launching surprising counteroffensives that have left Russian forces tangled in their own miscalculations. So, what does this mean for the future? Can Ukraine sustain this momentum against a seemingly monstrous adversary? As Kyiv showcases its capacity for innovation, from an impressive missile arsenal to advanced AI defenses, it raises the question, is this the resurrection of a nation, or simply a temporary rally before the storm? The answers may be shocking, but they lie in the hearts and minds of the brave souls defending their homeland. In this ongoing struggle, the resilience of a people shines through the sorrow and destruction, as Ukraine stands tall against the tide of chaos, rewriting the war's narrative with every courageous act. Will the tides continue to turn in their favor, consolidating their victories? Or will new challenges rise from the ashes, threatening to overshadow their hard-fought achievements? The next chapter of this saga is just beginning.